Hey Chelsea, taking a look at your submission. Good progress. I see everything's like coming along. Really cool. All right, so let's talk about the things I'm seeing. This is all splined, which is cool. Um, but I think I want to focus a little bit on this beginning part here, especially like some of the timing and stuff. It's cool. I like what you got going. The poses are cool. But what I want to see, I think, I like this step forward, but I think maybe I said this last time. I'm going to say it again because I'm feeling it again. I'm going to use green. It's a happier color. That in anticipation of this step forward, bring your center of gravity forward and delay this foot move. So if this is where the foot is, here, I'm going to turn on ghosting just so I know where the foot is. And we're here. I would leave the foot back here. I mean, you can start picking up the heel if you need to make the geometry of all this work, but I want to see kind of like the character not so much bending at the waist, but just kind of like leaning forward into this, right? So this is a foot. This foot starts to pick up if it needs to like reach. This knee can start bending, but that it's like they're kind of hurling themselves forward. And so when the character's here, they're like catching their weight with that foot. It's a small little thing, but I think it'll just try it. I think it'll kind of feel better. And this should kind of be like the height of the pelvis here, and then here is kind of like a down, you know, from the pelvis. So pay attention to that. You can kind of start this by going up and down a little bit, getting that little arc going on the center of gravity. And then here in this like curl, this is great. What a nice pose. I'm going to give you a star. But maybe when it goes from here into this pose, like it kind of continues forward, but maybe it should kind of like continue down. Kind of, when I talk about it, I'm talking about the center of gravity here, like kind of the pelvis, so that when it's in this pose, it's like it's really ready to spring up, which you're doing here in the spring, and I love it because you know you get this nice like doing out of this thing, right? Something I'm missing though, after it springs up, if you kind of pay attention to the arc that your center of gravity is taking here, it kind of levels off. So here we're like we're going up and forward, and then it stops kind of going up. So I think you need to like think of it like the bouncing ball, where it's got to do like this kind of parabola. And so when the character gets to here, it's like a down point, right? So it's almost like somewhere through here is going to be the apex of this kind of arc that you're making with your center of gravity. Yeah, so then this should be a down, maybe not the most extreme down, but it certainly should be on its way down. It should probably be like the extreme down should either be on this frame or this frame, like these poses, because by here you want to kind of be going up again. So pay attention to your like, I'm sure it's TY on your center of gravity on this character to get kind of like a nice up and down as the character runs forward. I feel like I'm missing that a little bit. I can see it more towards the end, but I think you can emphasize, like, I know that your reference, the guy's like not doing that much. But what I find is in animation, in order to like really communicate that something has weight and mass and is like a real object in a real world, even though we're lying, you have to kind of push some of this stuff a little bit more than what reference would. Like our eyes can pick up all this little detail and it looks normal and we don't have issues with it, but I think it's good to push it in your animation. I think a pose like this, I know I'm nitpicking a pose and maybe that isn't fair, but just go through and like maybe this foot pose could be a little bit in a more dynamic or interesting place. You know what I mean? All this stuff seems great. It really feels like the run is picking up speed. Yeah, and if there's opportunities here to like, I know that again, like the reference, that actor is like has his leg like bent, but if you can push it to be a little bit more straight in certain places, I'd say go for that. Also make sure you're like rotating your pelvis along with the steps and strides that the character is making. It feels pretty static. Although maybe there's a little rotation there. Just something maybe you can push, especially in moments like this. I really feel like I want to see the pelvis just slightly. Well, I'm doing it such a tiny drawing, but like, you know, see that rotation get open and stuff like this. Those are just tiny little like pose notes. None of this stuff is like super important. But when you do make the jump with this character, for some reason it feels like it kind of slows down. So I want to take a closer look at that to see why that may be. So what I'm going to do is do a little spacing evaluation here. I'm going to just kind of do something like that. In fact, maybe I could even just do a fat brush. Kind of give us an idea. It won't be perfect, but hopefully it'll help me figure out why it feels kind of like slowed down or slow motion compared to the run-up. And maybe that's what you're going for. If that's what you're going for, we can work with that. But it's like to shift playback speed, kind of like to build that into your animation. It's a bit tricky. You know what I mean? So maybe I would just say, let's work on making this feel like it's a real-time jump. Part of the thing is your camera is panning. You know what I mean? And you're sticking to the timing of the reference, more or less, which is a fine thing to do. But that camera pan is going to kind of mess up the perception of how much distance should be between here and here, right? And so maybe that's what's causing my feeling here. But yeah, looking at the spacing of this, you can see that like there's some issues. So you're going to have to go in here and look at this and maybe figure out how to solve it. So when I say there's issues, it's like this spacing through a jump, it's fine to make it pretty even in the horizontal aspect of things, because once the character pushes off here, there's no more energy going into that motion, right? Like they can't speed up. They could slow down with air resistance or wind resistance, but there's not that much wind resistance on a jump like this. So I think once we start getting to here, you can see the spacing gets a lot tighter. It gets a lot closer together. You kind of want to keep it really consistent across the whole thing. So you may need to pull out some of these frames. You know, there needs to be fewer frames in between. Maybe like this one and this one. So you have 6 here now, so maybe 5 or maybe even 4, whatever kind of keeps the spacing consistent from what you were doing before is probably going to be what's needed. So if this is the last one where the spacing was working and this is the last one, maybe you need 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe you have 6, so maybe you want to pull out like half of them. To get that to feel like it's like flowing across the stage in a fluid motion. And the same is going to be true here on this back end. You know what I mean? And you also want to pay attention to the horizontal spacing, because again, you want this to be kind of like a really nice arc and not have these kind of like changes of directions where I feel like we're feeling like corners on this motion. And maybe you just haven't gotten to this part or to evaluate this part yet. but this is how you're going to make it feel super cool and super awesome. So by getting that like spacing even all the way across and making sure your up and down is like nice and smooth on that center of gravity, I think that's going to make it look, I think that's going to eliminate what my eye is seeing, which is that like little slow motion feel or like a little molasses feel once he gets there. Yep, there seems to be a little spacing issue now that I'm watching it a little bit in more detail. Let's see. There's just like a little jump forward. Yeah, so here, again, keep an eye on your spacing because like you're here, you're here, you're here. All this feels really even and good, but then that feels like it jumps forward a lot, and that feels like it jumps forward a lot, and then that spacing is really, it closes down again. So I think it's okay to like increase your space between here, here, and here, you know, because like you're starting that like jump up. But you gotta, I think the spacing here should be more even, and then it definitely shouldn't get closer here and here right before the jump. Try to keep it more even. So maybe this one just needs to be backed up a little bit. That one needs to be backed up a little bit. Yeah. It's just something I felt. Really cool though. I mean, this is like a super solid start, and I feel like you're in a good spot for finishing it up by the end of class. Yeah, so keep up the great work. Hopefully everything I said makes sense. Yeah, all right. See you later.